What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Internet News and Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and I'm a two-timer. I also received an award for innovation by the same organization back in 2018. I also am the host of the only monthly online broadcast for fathers and dads that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. That's the only one they sponsor in the world for fathers and men. So I am very blessed about that. And it's also co-sponsored by Dad Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. And it's a Sunday afternoon, December 13th. It's getting colder here in Toronto, and I'm sure it's getting cold in other parts of the world, and that holiday season is here. But Sunday afternoons, most of the time, I have epic conversations called Black Canada Talking. And it's a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And I also feature Black Canadians. And I am jacked for more great people on this platform, and we have two more today. So let me give you some background first. We're going to be chatting today about a very important organization called the Canadian Association of Black Journalists. It was founded in 1996, and its mission is to increase representation through education and inspiration. They believe that Black journalists must work together in an effort to diversify newsrooms, to increase the number of Black media professionals in the management positions in Canada, and to educate and inspire a new generation of young Black journalists. They work toward extending their reach across Canada, and they're focused on advocating for diversity in Canadian media, reestablishing and increasing the Cbj's membership base in regions across Canada, raising up a new generation of Black journalists and content creators, and offering hands-on workshops on other diverse professional development opportunities to Black journalists and content creators. And we are very blessed and highly favored today to have two wonderful people from that organization. First up, Nadia Stewart. She's the executive director of the organization. Storytelling has taken her from coast to coast in Canada. These days, you'll find her at Global BC, which is in British Columbia, of course, where she works as a video journalist. She got her start at Rogers TV as a reporter, anchor, and talk show host. In 2010, she joined CBC, working as a multi-platform reporter and anchor in St. John's, Calgary, and Edmonton. She also spent 6 years as an editor and freelance writer for Planet Africa magazine, a Toronto-based quarterly publication that celebrates the achievements of the Black community across the diaspora. Nadia is also proud to be one of the first graduates of the University of Guelph-Humber in 2006. Off camera, she's helped relaunch the Canadian Association of Black Journalists. She also volunteers as a mentor in her community. We also have, from the Atlantic region, the East Coast, Brian Daly. His eclectic career has taken him across Central and Eastern Canada for all three national television networks and two wire services. It's been an awesome career with many big moments. He's covered everything from Indigenous uprisings and royal visits and big sporting events in 5 provinces and Nunavut. Another highlight came in 2019, where he had the privilege of producing 2 major broadcasts for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in partnership with the African Nova Scotian community. The first was a forum on policing, and the second was a week of broadcasts from the first ever Preston Town homecoming in Halifax historic Black communities. As administrator of the Black CABJ's mentoring initiative, he implements multiple programs at the grassroots level, including J School Noir and Newsroom Open Houses and Tours. Brian is the Atlantic Regional Director of Cbj. Wow, that was a lot to read, but they're doing a lot of stuff. So let's bring on Nadia and Brian. Good afternoon. Hello, folks, or good evening, too. How we doing?
Great, Dr. Vibe.
Hey,
yeah, great to be with you.
It's a pleasure. And for those people, if you're listening to this and you have your eyes closed like I do, when I first heard Brian's voice, I thought, am I speaking with Canada's version of Barry White? You hear that voice? You hear that voice? How are we, family? How are we doing today?
Hey, we're doing great. It's a Sunday. It's a blessed Sunday.
Absolutely. Receive that. Receive that. Well, what we're going to do first, great bios on both of you, but we're going to let the queen talk first and give a little bit more, like where you grew up, etc. And then we're going to hand it over to Brian. Then we'll get into the CABJ talk. So a little bit more about yourself, Nadia.
Sure. And thank you very much for the opportunity just to be on the show and to talk about the organization. We really appreciate it. Even though I live out here in BC, my roots are back east in Toronto. I was born and raised in the GTA and did all my schooling there, grew up there, still have all my family back there. And so after graduating university, as you mentioned, moved across the country and now find myself here in BC. BC is definitely home now. Just got married about 2 years ago. So this is definitely the place that we're going to be putting down some roots, and we really love it. Yeah, I do love it out here. So happy to be on the show and to be able to talk more about this organization.
Wonderful. And you're moving too.
We are in the midst of a move. Yes,
Okay.
looking at relocating here in the city. So it's a busy time as we head to the end of the year for us.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule to share with us. Mr. Brian, it's your turn.
I'm actually from back west in Montreal, where I was born and raised. So I came up through the Quebec system, speaking both languages and working for all sorts of major news organizations, and had a great career as a reporter and a lot of fun. And then I made a transition halfway through to television. I also had the privilege back in 1996 of, when I was a Ryerson student, being present for the inaugural meeting of the Cbj.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like sometimes you go through life and you think back to the places you've been and people you meet, and you realize in hindsight that you witnessed history on many occasions. And that was one of the times in my life where I was present for history, just a wide-eyed student, a fly on the wall. But the Cbj decided to hold their founding meeting on our campus.
Wow.
And so word had gotten around, and I was sitting there amongst a group of Black journalists, most of them older than me. And I couldn't understand at the time why many of them got emotional during their speeches and started to, shed the tears. Now I understand that that day back in 96 was the culmination of like a 20-year effort on the part of journalists from the previous generation to even start an organization where they could meet. And they were at a threshold moment where there were a lot of Black people choosing journalism at that time. And they saw that the need was there. And they had been through many terrible experiences in their workplace and in the field. You can imagine, further back you go, the more difficult it was. And I didn't really have and those people in my generation didn't have a full understanding of how difficult it was. And here we are now, like almost 25 years later, and we get to see a whole new Canada where the Black population is massive, and 2 million people, but yet a lot of the same issues that plagued our people in the 70s, 80s, and 90s continue to be a problem today. We as a people, we know what we're all about. We know how good we are. Canada hasn't caught up yet.
Good words. Good words. Nadia, when did the news bug hit you in your journey? Because some people say you're crazy to get involved in journalism. Why? Why journalism?
When I was growing up, I used to do public speaking competitively in grade school. So I was writing speeches, giving speeches, and I enjoyed it, even though I am actually an introvert. I tell everyone I'm just a high functioning introvert. And so my parents, both of them were always very supportive, just of my desire to pursue journalism. Grew up watching 2020 with my mom, Connie Chung, on 2020.
Yes.
And so, I, never thought that it was an impossible goal. I knew it would definitely be challenging because there were so few Black women on air. One of my early inspirations was always Andrea Case, because she's the only Black woman that I saw on TV in Toronto. And so she was always an early inspiration for me, but knew it would be tough, but never impossible. And with my family supporting me, just thought, why not?
Excellent. When did, Brian, you spoke about the first time you had exposure to Cbj, but when did both of you get involved in Cbj?
Well, I mean, I started out as a student member in the late 90s, or mid to late 90s. And throughout my career, the Cbj was there as an organization. But a key moment came recently I had just moved to Halifax after having spent most of my life in Montreal, and Nadia got in touch with me. Nadia and also David Thurton, who's a CBC reporter, they
Yes.
got in touch with me and said that they wanted me to get involved in helping to build the organization on the East Coast. The community here is proud and strong, the Black community. Many of you in Toronto and those of us in Montreal know Scotians, as we call them, because many of them have migrated west. But they have such a long, proud history here, but not the presence of national organizations that they deserve. And it's been a great last 3 years. I'm glad Nadia brought me on because the people are hungry for change and are hungry for opportunities to have their voices heard. And it's been a lot of work these last 2-3 years, but I can see how big and powerful the CABJ can become because of the community itself and their hunger for change.
Nice. Nadia, what got you involved in CABJ? Because obviously Brian had a little bit years ahead of you being involved with the organization. What brought you in?
So growing up in Toronto, I'd known about the CABJ, but never, ever, ever had any involvement in them, especially when I was going through university. No involvement back then. My connection to the CABJ came in after 2010 when I moved to Newfoundland. And one day I was walking to work, and there were two white girls walking in front of me. And they looked back at me, and one said to the other, "Oh, look, there's a," and she called me the N-word. And then she said to the the other girl said to her, "No, you can't say that. Like, you can't say that." And she said, "Oh no, I call them all." And she said the N-word again. And after that, I was like, "Wow, okay, this is what life is like outside of Toronto. I'm really gonna need some support. Like, I need a network. This is rough." And so reached out only to discover that the CABJ was not in existence, or had fallen dormant, I would say.
Yeah.
And then through a series of connections, Brian might remember Sasha Ann Simmons, and I met up with her at a conference in Washington, actually. The NABJ conference was in Washington in 2016. And she had already moved down to the States. She was working for a station down there. But while I was there, connected with her, and she was like, "Absolutely, the former president would be happy to hear from you, happy to hear that she would love to see the CABJ relaunched, and I'll connect you." And she did, and started working with Michelle, and back then Adrian Harewood from CBC Ottawa.
Yes.
And that's how we brought on more folks from CBC, and then David Thurton and Adeteyo Barrow became key people, I'd say, in the relaunch as well. And then so that was, I would say, 2016, 2017. And then we brought on Brian Daly, and off we went. We brought on 2 other members since then on the executive team, built out the rest of the board. It's been a lot of work. But definitely rewarding. So that's my journey. That's how I came to the CBJ.
No problem. I want to also get thoughts throughout this conversation about, here is a question in real time. Sarah Oyongo from Ottawa is asking, is there another Black Journalists Association for Francophones?
Should I answer in English or French?
Both.
Merci pour les questions. Merci pour les questions. Et un de nos buts, one of our goals is to build our organization in Quebec, and we're going to have a Quebec executive added to our executive team, God willing, in 2021. And that'll be a key one, because I found that even though I'm one person in Atlantic Canada, once I get news organizations and journalists, Black and also white, on board, one person can build a team and make a huge difference. And so you're going to see that in 2021, we're going to be building our presence significantly in Quebec. We already have members and devoted people like Maya Johnson, who was the newly named lead co-anchor of CTV Montreal. She's been a friend of the CABJs, and there are many others who work with us. And so once we get that infrastructure built in Quebec starting next year, tu vas voir la différence, madame. Absolument.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Let me ask you the state of media when you first got involved for Canadian Black journalists compared to what it is today.
I don't know that much has changed.
Interesting. That's
I
interesting right
mean,
there.
I mean, when I started, well, of course, in Newfoundland, I was the only Black journalist out there. So now out here in BC, there are more journalists of color in the newsroom, but I don't know that the situation has gotten better over the years for Black journalists, and certainly not over the course of the years that I've been in the industry. One particular story that comes to mind is when we were launching, when we were in the relaunch phase. Actually, this was like 2018, maybe early 2019. And we'd reached out to Hamlin Grange, who was one of the founding members of the Cbj, and who has just been a great support all throughout this journey as we have relaunched the organization. And he wrote a blog post for us about the invisible Black journalists in the Canadian industry. It's still on our website at cbj.news. And yes, Sarah's absolutely right. We cannot forget Black journalists in French Canada. But thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. But in talking to Hamlin, he wrote a blog post for us about the invisible Black journalists, and I remember saying to him at the time, like, if you read his words there, they're really strong. And I said to him, like, this is these are really strong words. Are you sure? Is there anything that you wanted to change? And he said, no, Nadia. Like in my years, what I've seen in this industry, the number of Black journalists have gone down in Canadian newsrooms. He said significantly. And so he said, yeah, my words are strong, but I stand by everything there that I said. So, thinking about his words and thinking about, what we're seeing and what I've seen over the last several years, I don't know that the situation has improved as much as it should have over the course of this time.
Thanks. Brian, your take.
Start by saying that our people are being heard through social media. Our people are being heard through the Dr. Vibe show. Our people are being heard through non-traditional means. So here's the way I see it, okay? Our people, those who want to have a voice in the media, are being heard, but not through the mainstream media. The mainstream media is falling behind. The mainstream media is falling behind technologically. The mainstream media is falling behind morally, culturally, socially, in every way. They are not recruiting people of color to their newsrooms. Meanwhile, the population of people of color, as we know, is increasing tremendously. The media is not covering the people of color in a fair, balanced, and accurate way, in all of our glory, okay? What do you see when the mainstream media covers, for example, studies on our community, on the Black community? It's always about how the social indicators are all looking down. Unemployment is low. Self-esteem is low. Crime is high. But yet, I'm looking at my whole family, my side of the family, my wife's side of the family. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have teachers, we have business people, we have people across all the entire gamut of our society. Well, what's going on here? Why is it that the media, the mainstream media, are not reflecting the community the way it actually is, which is that we're high-achieving, hardworking people? That's systemic racism. And so why would a young Black person want to come work in a newsroom when they can go work in places where they're appreciated, in industries where they're appreciated? I don't blame them, Dr. Vibe. So yeah, our people are doing what we're doing. You're doing what you're doing, myself, Nadia. In the Black community, we're doing very well in this country, but the media either doesn't care or doesn't want to know about what we're doing. So they're being left behind. And so therefore, yes, you better bet there aren't as many Blacks in some newsrooms as there had been in the 90s. We have lost ground in the mainstream media for good reason.
Okay, good stuff. So when your organization, I'm not going to make an assumption, do you ask the mainstream media why not more, and what excuses do they give? I'm not going to say reasons. What excuses do they give?
It's interesting. We're in the process of writing an op-ed that will be published in one of the major newspapers next month, as we look at, it's been a year since the calls to action that we released, calling on the industry to make some key changes around representation, hiring more Black people in Canadian newsrooms, promoting them to positions of leadership, engaging more with the community, looking at their internal policies and what they should have been doing better and what needs to change. In terms of responses that we hear and excuses, I think to be fair, they're just excuses. I don't know if I want to give space for excuses, because I don't think that at this point we should still be hearing from them, yes, we're working on it, yes, we're doing that, no, we can't, we've had trouble trying to recruit Black journalists. All of that, I think, are the weak excuses that we've heard that I just don't want to give space to anymore. I think what we're hearing from our community of Black journalists is that they're tired, they're fed up, and they don't want to hear those excuses. They just want action.
Brian?
Kind of excuses we're hearing, I'll tell you, because I've spoken to media executives who say they can't find Black candidates, or that there aren't enough Black candidates out there. Part of that is the narrow-mindedness in the media, which says that you have to hire somebody who graduated from a major journalism school in order to be a journalist, when they know full well that much of the training in journalism happens on the job, and whatever people don't know when they're coming in, they can be taught. Not to mention the fact that, of course, we still have Black students in journalism schools across this country. So ultimately, there's a lack of will. Why did we issue at the Cbj, in conjunction with Canadian Journalists of Color, why did we issue 7 calls to action for media organizations to improve representation of Black and BIPOC journalists? Because there's a major need there. The big one for me amongst the 7 calls to action is hiring. News organizations are willing to strike committees. They're willing to do studies. They're willing to bring in consultants. They're willing to talk a good game. But when it comes to actually hiring people, especially hiring people as permanent full-time employees, somehow it becomes very difficult for them to do that. As far as I'm concerned, there are people in the media who don't think Black people deserve a job. It's that simple. We've seen situations where people have hired folks who have brothers and sisters, and the children of people who work in the news organization. Nepotism is alive and well, and there are certainly a lot of people in the media who are mediocre at their jobs, but yet they're allowed to keep their jobs, while there are shining stars in communities of color who, frankly, they just move on with their life and go work in public relations or go work in the political side. We're losing people in our community right now to the communications industry. I hate to play up any kind of a rivalry between journalism and comms, but maybe there is a bit of a rivalry. Okay, I can name you people who are working at high levels in comms in Ottawa right now. Some of them are probably going to cross over to the political side and become very well-known politicians. Well, a lot of those people could have been working in media right now, but they didn't get a job. That's a missed opportunity.
Wow. So let's talk about Cabj. What, and actually I'll put that 2020 and Cabj. It's been quite a year. What impacts, what things, what opportunities, what amplified challenges has Cabj faced, if any, as an organization, and for the journalists out there trying to, because we've been impacted seriously by 2020. And I didn't see too many people like us talking about us on the screens.
In terms of challenges, I don't know that we've really faced any. For the Cabj, I feel like this has been a year of explosive opportunity as an organization to connect with Black journalists across the country. The people that we serve have definitely been under a lot of pressure. And I feel like as an organization, it has presented a real opportunity for us to come alongside them, come behind them with the programming that we were able to launch in a big way across the country. Brian can talk about some of the programs that have touched the lives of journalists and aspiring journalists, right? Because we also work with a lot of kids. But one thing I would say is that this is the year that we launched 4 national programs and started working on a national conference with Canadian journalists of color. So it's been a year of huge opportunity for the Cbj.
Congratulations, by the way. Brian, can want to add on? And plus, when I was speaking with Nadia offline. She said, you need to get you to talk about your school. So we want to hear about your school.
J School Noir, J School Noir. Nadia drafted a curriculum with experts in the industry. So when I came on, I had a curriculum that was geared towards high school students. Think about, when you may have thought, oh, what should I do when I grow up? That decision often is made in high school. So we thought so many programs are geared towards university students and your internships and whatnot. But what about the youth? What about those who are teenagers? They have so much to say. They're already doing incredible work on social media. They have editing skills. They have recording and shooting skills with video. They have performance abilities. And so we thought, why not provide them with some more tools to shine? And so, J School Noir launched in Halifax just before the lockdown. So in February, we held it at Nova Scotia Community College, this high-tech TV lab. The young people got to meet some of the Black journalists who work locally here in Halifax. There was an announcement by Global News of a $10,000 annual scholarship geared specifically towards a Black aspiring journalist. And then they got to sit in the TV studio and record newscasts at the end of the day. And then they've spent this last several months under the lockdown meeting virtually with some of the Black journalists I just mentioned. Great opportunity, and we saw immediate fruits. Nadia and I, the executive, were talking about benchmarks, or what would be considered a success for our inaugural event. And we certainly believed that if one of these young people chose a career in journalism, that would be success. Well, guess what? We got messaged not long after J School Noir at Halifax, and one of the young people, one of the 12 young students we had, said that she had been considering a career in law, but after attending J School Noir, she's changed her mind, and she wants to be a journalism student and go to journalism school. So boom, right away, we had that fruit that's just makes it all worthwhile, Dr. Vibe, because one person can make such a huge difference in any organization. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the enormity of this situation, the problem of systemic racism and underrepresentation. But that young lady by herself, if she works hard, can be a successful journalist, a successful storyteller. We hope that somebody like her does go into journalism school, get into the media, and become successful.
Congratulations. Thanks for sharing that success story. Really, really like it. And I know, Nadia, you work for an organization, so you don't need to answer this one, but at least I know Brian will answer it because I get his strength in that. How are you feeling Black Canadians are being portrayed by the media these days? Go ahead, Brian.
For myself, Dr. Vibe, I don't like what I'm seeing. Part of the problem is that, and maybe it's societal, we're still seen as the other. We're still seen as a bunch of people who came from somewhere else. When people see our face, they're not feeling like they're seeing Canadians. One of the things that I think needs to happen in the media, there does need to be a normalization of Blackness. Even though we're exceptional in our high achievers, when I use the word normalization, I don't mean we're normal people, but I mean that we need to be shown in all of our glory. Well, I had a conversation with a colleague that really I should share with you. There's an organization trying to increase awareness amongst Black and Indigenous Canadians about the climate change situation, because some surveys have indicated that climate change is not as high on the list of critical issues when you poll Black and Indigenous people as the issue of racism is. That doesn't surprise me. Okay, but this organization felt, rightly or wrongly, that was something needed to be remedied. Fair, whatever, they can have their opinion. But when I spoke to a colleague about this story, this situation I'm describing to you, know what that colleague said to me? They said, well, I understand that Black people wouldn't really care that much about climate change. With all the problems they have to deal with, they're not going to be thinking about issues that affect their children and grandchildren. And she said that to my face. Mm-hmm. Part the problem here, Dr. Vibe, is some white Canadians feel, perhaps because of the representation of our people in the media, that we're only concerned about like what? Racism, sports, culture, and crime. You know, because if you just go by what you see in the media, a lot of crime stories on Blacks, a lot of cultural celebrations, things related to sports, and things related to like music and entertainment. What about the 150 other things that we're concerned about, right? Including climate change, right? Part of the problem is, for example, when you see people talking about, let's just use an example. When you see people talking about international trade, they're always going to be white, always. So you might think, after watching that for your whole life, watching only white people talking about the economy and finance and international trade, you might think we don't care about those things. So it was significant to me that last year, on one of the networks in this country, I saw a Black male who looked something like me, actually a large, heavy-set, dark-skinned brother, talking about the Canada-US softwood lumber deal. And even as a journalist, I sort of yawn when I hear about that story because it never goes away. I watched the whole segment from start to finish because there was a brother talking about it. You know, that we need to see more of that. And a couple of weeks ago, I saw on a real estate segment, I saw a Black real estate expert talking about housing prices. And God knows there's enough Black real estate agents in this country. It's not like, you know, you have to search around to find them, right? Of course we do. My aunt was a real estate agent. But what we're not seeing is a normalization of Black people seeing us in all of our diversity within our community, and having us talk about issues beyond the issues you often hear us talk about, Dr. Rad. We need to see more of that.
I agree with, you know, everything that Brian is saying. The only thing I'll add is, if you look at the way our, you know, mainstream media outlets are structured, they profit off of people's pain. And so whether it's Black pain or the pain of racialized communities, that's where they make their money. And I remember reading a quote earlier this year from Camille Dundas, and you know, Camille and Roger, the founders of BuyBlacks.com. And Camille said, you know, that Black pain is the only speed really that mainstream media knows. They've profited off of it. They tell stories, you know, about it, and that's all we ever see. So if that's all you ever see, what do you feel? I'm frustrated too, you know, in the newsroom that I work in, that pretty much the only stories that we tell are about the pain of racialized communities. We don't get into the nuance. We miss all of it. For me, it's a frustrating, gutting experience, because it feels like no matter how much you explain, that these stories require a little bit more time, a bit more sensitivity, and that there are positive stories, as Brian mentioned, you know, just normalizing race in the media is something that could be done. But again, because this media is so focused on the profit off of pain, you just don't get those perspectives.
Mm-hmm. I want to focus some time on CABJ for our listeners and viewers. So what are the things that CABJ is doing now? What are the action areas that you're really focused on going into 2021?
Okay, Brian and I can divvy these up. You know, I can talk about the other programs that we've launched, and I'll leave it to Brian to talk about some of the big picture things. But aside from JSN, which I'd say JSN was our first program that Brian launched and led out in Eastern Canada. So that's the one that we've had, I'd say, the biggest return so far. Second to that has been Cbj Connect, which is our program where we focus on connecting Black journalists in different cities across the country. And this, I think Cbj Connects really is important to all of us, because Brian is a Black journalist in Halifax. I'm out here in Vancouver. I spent some time in Alberta. Black journalists are everywhere, but everywhere you find them, oftentimes you get this feeling of isolation. You're the only one, and that is really tough. It makes for just a really tough career. And so what we love about Cbj Connects is that we're surfacing and bringing to the forefront all of this Black talent, connecting them with one another, offering opportunities for whether that is mentorship or workshops. We've done a couple of online sessions and they have all been great. We've got success stories as well out of Cbj Connects where people have gotten hired because their profile has been featured on our website. So we know that this is a program that's just only going to continue to grow. There's also Cbj on campus, where we are just starting to connect with Black students on campuses across the country. Really excited about this program, and we hope to really relaunch it or launch it with a lot more strength in 2021. It's been a tough year for students in 2020. So really launch it with a lot of strength in 2021. And we are starting to connect with students now. We have actually a meeting this week where we're looking about launching our first Toronto chapter. So stay tuned for that. And then we've also got Cbj Media Startup Bootcamp, which is our incubator program, our training program for Black journalists and content creators who want to launch their own platform. And we were really inspired by, again, the work of Roger and Camille Dundas, people like Shireen Taylor as well, who is the founder of Bashi magazine. We just believe that these are journalists who are not just the future, the present, launching and building their own digital media startups. And we feel like this is the best way that the Black community is going to get their voices heard. Yes, of course, we're going to continue to lobby and advocate for Black journalists and newsrooms, but building our own within our community, our voices, our stories, our people front and center. It's been a huge success. We've got 20 people going through the program and about to hand out some grants to them in the new year. So very exciting.
Okay, fantastic. Brian?
Well, in addition to all the programs, there's also just the ear, the listening ear that all of us at the Cbj Executive are offering to Black journalists. Black journalists, as Nadia said, many times are the only Black person in their newsroom. They have to deal with some of the issues that you've heard us talking about within workplaces, racism and intolerance, and it's stressful. And there have been all sorts of instances, goodness, right up to this past week. I had a chance to speak to a young man who was struggling with mental health, and we're also looking to pair journalists up with others who can speak to them as mentors, also in terms of mental health help, to offer services that you wouldn't typically think journalists need. You watch journalists on television, and we do put quite a bit of effort into our presentation and making sure we've got the facts right. And we try to exude that confidence, of course, the confidence that we understand the story and will communicate it to you. So you don't see the other side of it, which is that we are obviously humans. We have the same feelings as everybody else. There's that misperception that we're these vultures who are looking to exploit people. It's difficult sometimes for us even to muster up the courage to talk to somebody and ask them a tough question or do a story on them that could potentially harm them if the truth comes out. That does take a toll. The job is stressful, and then when you're Black, there's the added stress. Even this year, the year of Black awakening across North America, in the wake of George Floyd, there's an added burden that we have to deal with, which is that we're turned to in our newsrooms for the solutions to the problem of racism. So I've been in more meetings internally at my employer than I can count. All these things add up. And so among the many things we do, we also are here for people to call in and talk to us. And we there are many instances, and I know it's been the case with Nadia, where you have a chance to talk to people about their personal life and things beyond the job, because of the fact that we also recognize the need for Black journalists to be able to have that whole health, mental, physical, spiritual as well.
Well, it's good stuff. Good stuff. When both of you jumped in, give me one or two special moments you've had so far during the Cbj journey. Nadia?
Oh, wow. So I think, a key moment was earlier this year when we released the calls to action. And as a team, we spent much of 2019 writing that and released the calls to action in January 2020, January 28th, 2020. They were printed on JSOURCE. And we got a great response from emergent media, independent media, places like the Walrus, the Sprawl, the Narwhal, but nothing from establishment media, not even the company that I work for, responded, even though I sent them an advance copy of it and sent it directly to them. Nothing came of it. And then the end of May, June rolled around. As you mentioned, the country, North America, really, the world really was gripped by this race reckoning, with ground zero being the murder of George Floyd. And all of a sudden, our organization was really thrust into the spotlight. And we were doing a lot of meetings, doing a lot of speaking. We are still having meetings with executives and media outlets right across the country, holding them accountable, talking about the change that they are going to make. To me, that's what the Cbj is about. Yes, we're here supporting Black journalists. We're here building programming and building the future that we want to see for Black journalists. But it's also that accountability piece that I can tell you is a lot of work across our team. All of us have been involved in it. So for me, that was a key moment, that we released the calls to action. We knew we had something there, even though the outlets didn't want to engage at that time. We knew we were onto something. And sure enough, by the middle of the year, whether they wanted to or not, they were the ones who were reaching out to us saying, we want to talk about that document that you put out with CJOC.
Brian, special moment or moments along the way?
Yes, well, certainly. I should also mention, by the way, you saw cbj.news. We are looking for volunteers to help out. Please visit cbj.news, and we do have a call out for volunteers for all this very important work.
So, Brian, just as you're making that request,
with major news organizations.
Just as you're making that request, what areas would you be looking for volunteers in? Like, it's anything specific? Okay, I think we may have froze there.
Did we lose them? Okay, I can fill in. So on the website, we have a couple of positions. So it looks like we might have found somebody for the marketing coordinator. So that job is still posted, but it looks like we've got some candidates who are in the running there. We're also looking for someone to support us for almost all of our programming. So we're looking for a program assistant for J School Noir, for the Bootcamp, and we're also looking for a program assistant for Cbj Connect, and someone to support the website, do some administrative work for us, help with bookkeeping. It's kind of I'd say it's really an administrative position. We're looking for a volunteer to fill that gap. So thank you, Brian, for bringing that up, because we are very much, very much in need of people to support us. We're a small but nimble team.
Wonderful. You have a big event coming up next year.
We do. In collaboration with CJOC, we are hosting our first conference, and it's called Rise. Very excited about Rise and the opportunity at this conference to center Black, Indigenous, and racialized journalists across the country, center their talent, their knowledge, their skills, their voices, really. And really engage in a meaningful conversation, about this industry, the future of the industry, sharing skills, sharing knowledge. We're excited about it. It is going to be a virtual conference, just given, everything that 2020 has been. So stay tuned for when tickets open up and we launch the conference platform so that people can begin with the registration. But right now on our website, if you head over to cbj.news, you'll go over to the updates, the news and updates page. And over there is a post about the conference and an invitation for journalists, for Black journalists to submit proposals, ideas, anything for a workshop or a panel, what have you. You're welcome to head on over there and submit a proposal.
Nice. Brian, anything you want to add about Rise?
Because it's going to be showcasing our best and brightest in this industry. And let me tell you, Black journalists and journalists of color will save this industry. This industry will die if they keep doing things the old way. And if they won't change, they deserve to die, because we've got our own platforms now. Obviously, we're speaking on one of them right now. It would behoove mainstream news organizations, if they truly want to continue to succeeding through the 21st century to start to promote people of color into management positions. The glass ceiling basically is at the senior producer position now. I know most of the producers and senior producers, of which I'm one, producing a newscast, but it's very rare to see Black executive producers and people in management. I can only name 4 Black managers, Dr. Vibe, in the entire news industry in Canada. I know 3 of the 4 personally. That's how bad it is. And only 2 of them are in daily news. 2 of them, the managing editor of the Hill Times, Sherelle Evelyn, that's a weekly, and the managing editor of the New Observer in Ottawa is David Mackay. That's a weekly. But in daily news, it's Nick Davis at CBC and Cheryl Grant at the Halifax Chronicle Herald, and I know them all. It's ridiculous. Okay, this industry is going to die if people don't come to our conference at Rise, and you'll see who you should be hiring and promoting into management. And we'll bring new ideas in because we're veterans. It's not like you're hiring rookies. You've got people who've got 20, 25, 30 years in the industry, and some of them move on and do their own thing. Thank God Camille Dundas moved on from the mainstream media that wouldn't promote her into management. Thank God. That's a benefit to the whole country because of buyblacks.com. So we're not sitting around here having a pity party for ourselves. If the media is not going to promote Black journalists, then we're going to move on and benefit ourselves and benefit the community in our own ways. We're resilient people.
Excellent. No, that's good. And I've known Camille and Roger for many, many years, and it's what they're doing with buyblacks.com is outstanding. So as we start coming to the end of the conversation today, those out there who want to get a start in this thing called journalism, what are some suggestions, best practices, other than getting aligned with CABJ, should they be doing?
These days I'm not telling young people the same thing that I used to tell them back in the day. Go and try and get a job, break into the industry in a smaller market and work your way up. That was the path that so many of us took. I believe now more than ever, young journalists don't have to take the traditional path. And I'm speaking to young Black journalists. You do not have to, go to some small market and fight your way up into a position of leadership. As Brian told you, there are so few Black journalists who make it, who get to crack that glass ceiling. There are so many platforms nowadays and so many opportunities for young Black journalists to self-publish, to start broadcasting, to start making content and putting it out there. Get a good foundation, absolutely. Get a good foundation by going to a college or to a university. Don't feel like you got to go and get that degree. College is great. So whichever stream you decide to go, definitely get that foundation, get that good foundation. But don't feel like you've got to go to some far-flung community and fight your way up in. You can start where you are. If you love to produce content, start producing that content now.
Brian.
And I can name so many of the Black startups, and obviously the Bootcamp is going to encourage more of them. So I would encourage you, if you want to get into the media, to get in touch with some of these startups. Get in touch with buyblacks.com. Get in touch with The Objective, the digital Black publication in Halifax. And Melismatic is the other one, Nadia?
Melanistic magazine in Edmonton.
Magazine. So those publications need people who have a variety of skills. Those of you who want to get into storytelling, I would recommend you do as Nadia said and look to start your own YouTube channel, look to join up with Black startups that would need your storytelling ability. And for those of you who are gifted in other areas, technical areas, those of you who are gifted in finance, why should we have to look to white people to finance our organizations? The Objective, the Black digital publication in Halifax, has Black American financiers. He did that on principle because he knows that there are Black people with money. So why wouldn't he go ask them first for their money? And they said yes. So this is the way we need to go now. Is yes, groups like the Cbj, we're going to continue to push the mainstream media, but they move very slowly. And in the meantime, why wait? Like Nadia said, definitely pursue a post-secondary education and get that degree, absolutely. But once you get out of school, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And think about the entrepreneurship side. This country needs Black content creators. This country needs Black digital publications. And so please, and we can help you with this also, because the boot camp with Camille and Roger Dundas, they have that expertise to share with you as to how you start up, if you'd like to start up your own company, or if you want to join with an existing Black digital publication, like I'm saying here. Very important to do that.
I'll also throw my hat in if anyone wants to help Dr. Vibe. Hey, look, I've done over 2,000 of these, and most of them all on my own. So I am looking for the help too. That's one of the reasons I got a bald head. I had to do all this stuff on my own. So I'm telling you. So there's some comments here. So Nicole is asking, can a podcaster join CABJ? I would hope so, but can you answer that question?
That's a 100% yes. Nicole, if you head on over to the website at cbj.news, you'll find in the drop-down menu, so just in the top right-hand corner, top left-hand corner, the drop-down, and you can head on over to the membership page and figure out which category you fall into. If you are, you do something else and podcasting is kind of like your side hustle, I'd suggest looking at the community journalist category. And I feel like that category probably would be the best fit. So take a look, head on over to the website and take a look at that one.
No problem. And you answered the next question there that Sarah saying, can community media folks join? So obviously. Yeah. Good question here, or suggestion from Sylvia Paris. How about developing a webinar for students in elementary and junior high?
I'll leave that one for Brian.
Yes. Well, I'm living in that. You're right. I am completely immersed in the world of high school journalism training. J School Noir is available. Registration is open. Go to cabj.news. Go to the top left-hand side and look for programs. Under programs, you'll see J School Noir. We're offering J School Noir this year in Halifax, Ottawa, Toronto, and Edmonton. And we have big names who have sponsored us. And Google, CBC, CTV, and the University of King's College in Halifax are our sponsors, and we're very happy to have them on board. So J School Noir Halifax, J School Noir Ottawa, J School Noir Toronto, and J School Noir Edmonton are happening in February of 2021. And we have a number of partners who've come on board to offer an experience that the young people will certainly not forget. We're, like I say, excited about that. Especially, we're going to have prominent Black journalists who are going to be teaching, and Google has agreed to offer up a YouTube channel tutorial. I figure Google might know a thing or two about how to maximize and optimize a YouTube channel. So we definitely have a heart for the youth. By the way, J School Noir in 2022, when God willing, this whole thing we're living through blows over, we're going to go back to in-person events. So JSN 2021 is virtual, but J School Noir 2022 is going to be, God willing, back in person, not only in those 4 cities I named, but we're expanding. We want to have events in places like Montreal and Vancouver. So this is going to be it is a national, it's going to continue to be a national program for young people, because why wait till you get into journalism school to start producing, especially since we know young people are producing already. This is a way to learn more about how to optimize what you're doing and get a bigger audience. And our people are leaders. Our people lead this culture. We don't follow. And so this is a way for it to happen.
Excellent. Last conversation piece. Where would you like to see CABJ in the next 5 years from now?
Oh, geez. I mean, I believe for this organization, the possibilities are endless. Truly. I think J School Noir is going to, I feel like J School Noir is the foundation of getting more curriculum that better reflects the fact that Black journalists have had a significant impact in the Canadian media industry. I feel like it's the foundation for changing curriculum across the country in media schools. And I think that it is going to lay the groundwork. You'll start to see J School Noir right across the country. I think on campus is going to shift. It's going to help shift conversations on campus about how we're teaching journalism and the fact that there aren't enough Black journalists at the front of the classroom. I think our on-campus program is going to shift that. In 5 years, I think you're going to see a lot more folks in front of the class, Black folks, leading those lessons. I think the Bootcamp is going to have a significant impact right across the country in terms of increasing within our community Black content creators and giving them that profile. And I also think that the material that we're offering in terms of what we're teaching, I think you're going to start to see that expand in a big way. I don't want to give away too much, but I feel like you're going to see the material that we're teaching. I think that's going to expand in a big way. And I see this organization, again, being at the forefront of conversations around change and innovation in this industry. Brian.
To follow, in 5 years, I believe the Cbj is going to be part of this continued awakening of our people across this country, Black people, to where we're leading in this industry. No longer will we be portrayed in such a way that, you know, people have stereotypical views of us and we don't have our own thing to say. We're gonna be leading on both sides of media, mainstream media as well as digital media, which quite frankly represents the future. So therefore, we're in a good position as Black people. We're going to be starting up our own platforms, and Dr. Vibe, you are part of it too. I hope you sign up for yourself, also as a member of Cbj. You know, we can use you, and we'll have Cbj TV. How's that?
I received that. I can work with that if you're willing to have my shiny head and shiny face on once in a while. We'll work with that. Nadia, Brian, thank you and your team for what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing. Yes, I will. And Nadia knows we've had a previous conversations. I do want to get involved more proactively in the organization. So I'm here to serve. And as I especially tell all ages of people of color, doesn't matter if they're young or old, this is probably the best time in history to be a significant content creator. But the end game is, and we've been around for a bit, it still takes work, right? And there's more competition than ever, so it still takes the work. But excellent conversation. Thank you so much. I know we're going to be in touch. I'd like to say a few closing words. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you to Birdie Lynn from all the way from Tennessee who was watching. Thank you all for making it an epic conversation, those who watch live or on replay or who will be listening on the replay. My name is Dr. Vibe. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, two-time Canadian Ethnic Media Association Award winner. 2020, I had for Best Internet News Broadcast, and 2018, I received the award for Innovation, which is their second highest of achievement award. The only thing higher than that is Lifetime Achievement. I hope I'm around for a lifetime to make it 3 from them. Also, I host the only online broadcast, monthly online broadcast that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's for fathers and men. And I'm very blessed to be hosting that. And it's also in conjunction with Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. If you want to find out more information about me, the best place to go is my website, thedrvibeshow.com. Thank you to BIA Media for another epic production, epic conversation. As always, close out with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. And one quick thing I heard from one of my mentors today, and this is holiday season, joy, joy, joy. So listen to this quote. It was a gentleman named John Piper said, "The only thing worse than not having joy is stealing someone else's." God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. Walk good and never settle. Bye, everybody.